Every club.
Every day.
The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Greg Elliott, and today I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Sacchio Finch. How you doing, Zach?
Yeah, mate, not too bad. Not too bad. Waiting an eternity for our next game, it feels like.
Yes. We're here today previewing our match against Spurs, which Zach alludes to, feels in the distant future. I realise that it's the thing I've moaned about probably the second most this week after, Russell Martin. But
I feel
7
like it's
p.m. on a
topped it, mate.
Sunday kickoff really sort of starts to take the biscuit, in my opinion. It's not. Look, at 7 o'clock on a Sunday evening, I want to be sat on the sofa with the kids in bed, looking through my fantasy football to see how I've got on that weekend with Red Zone on the TV. I don't want to be traipsing into a cold, wet St Mary's to watch us get battered by Spurs.
Well, we're just getting straight into it then. We might not. I'm really not a fan of the whole. We need to make the atmosphere as horrible, as toxic as possible. Like plans that some people have. Like, mate, it's already 7 p.m. on a Sunday, and like,
who's got
people
the energy for that at that time on a Sunday?
it's
Honestly,
just right. We've had the presser already, so we already know that Russell Martin has upset more people by trying to seemingly double down on his comments, mugging off the fans the other day. So I get it. I get that they're frustrated. I get that he's frustrated. I understand both points. I just feel like it's always really weird to me that people go out of their money to spend money on just being miserable and hyping other people up to be completely and utterly miserable. Now, there's a lot to be said about false positivity as well. Like, sometimes that is as delusional as being unbelievably negative. But it does really, really grind my gears when people just seem to just hate for the sake of hate, as opposed to, like, I just want us to win now, immediately. Rah! And it's like, yeah, I get it. And I get that his philosophy of football is not great. And I get that it's not going the way we want it to go. But I also don't quite understand sort of just the level of vitriol that people have, maybe, I guess.
yeah, it's crazy, and you're right. I am of the opinion that fantastic. If we go on and win the remaining games of the season and stay up, and Russell Martin as our manager, happy days, praise be. But yeah, to go out of your way to go there with that negative vibe, I don't know. I don't know if I'm feeling that. I'll be feeling optimistic right up until kickoff, and then we'll see what happens as the game progresses. But as we established yesterday in our crossover episode, it could be two teams trying to shoot the wrong way, right? Like,
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be the most thrilling of encounters for most people involved. And like, again, like, Spurs might batter us 4-0 or they might lose 5-0. This is very Spursy. I think you sent me the other day, or somebody sent a list of most Spursy teams, and apparently we're quite high up on that list, alongside like West Brom and somebody else, which did make me laugh. We're both teams who both have managers that we're not really a fan of at the moment because it worked for a while and it isn't working anymore. They seemingly don't want to change from the philosophy. There's been a lot of chat in the pre-match review where Russ seems to have got a little bit more animated about, well, if you don't understand how it is, and and plan A and plan B may look similar because they're based in the same thing, and if we throw it all out, then we're nothing. I'm like,
that's not a
have
plan B.
absolutely
To be
no
clear.
understanding as to what that means. And like, I feel like if you're trying to quell the noise per se, and you're trying to show an air of confidence around what you're doing, kicking off about other people criticizing other managers for doing similar things to you and getting so animated about it in a pre-match press conference, it's a bit like the pressure's getting to him behavior, in my opinion. And I don't be surprised. Like, it's got to suck. And he said he's finally come out and said he finds it embarrassing and upsetting that we're in the position that we're in, that the amount of points we have is not okay. And it's like, cool, then can we try and do anything to rectify that, rather than the same thing that we've been doing over and over? Because I feel like as the confidence levels drop, I don't feel like that's going to improve the situation we're in. It's not like everyone's going to suddenly start playing better as more and more get upset. that's not the entire full story, is it? There's
But
a
look,
lot
have we
to take.
got the opportunity this weekend to capitalise on Spurs' woes and start turning it around and get that winning feeling against a perceived much bigger team and take it from there and take it the strides? We've got the positive team news. We've got Yanni B back. We've got Tall Paul back. We got the goalkeeper news we've all been waiting for. Alex McCarthy is back. Um,
Another key part of that, I think, that is potentially Lallana's back this weekend as well, and I think we've been missing him quite a lot. I think
I
the
don't know
creativity
how
going
to
forward.
read into that, but the fact that it was mentioned in a separate part of the press conference makes me feel that that's got real similar vibes to it as Tall Paul will be back for Chelsea and then coming out directly after the game to Alfie House and saying, "No, it wasn't ever going to be ready. I just said it so they'd prep for him." Like,
Right? Yeah, no, that is the most upsetting thing, but.
so
We just have to see. Maybe the dream of a tall Paul Archer up front would actually play off this weekend.
I
Who
mean,
knows?
at his ripe old age, is Adam Lallana even going to be awake at that time on a Sunday night?
Mate. But you're right. It is. That's the sad thing about it. Not having Ramsdale back is not ideal, but also I don't want to rush him back. Him take
No.
another blow to the finger, and then all of a sudden, you know, he's out for another 6-7 weeks. If they have to keep him, they have to keep him off. But yeah, you're right. There are some positives, like Jan being back and Tall Paul being back are good things, and hopefully they will add something to the game, and hopefully we will. If the criticism and the noise does nothing but galvanise Russell Martin, that's fine. I think that there's a lot to be said about him and the players reacting to fan negativity because they've never seemingly had to experience it, I think, at this level yet, especially the players we have now, like some of the ones that were there for the relegation season for sure, but like being that rattled and making comments about it, like all he had to do was go, yeah, sorry, I got annoyed. My point was just a bit misconstrued, my bad. But like
Yeah.
going into a full in-depth explanation, like I don't think that an
I
argument
didn't
ever.
criticise. I just said it, but it's just not the time for ironic cheering. I'm like, we're pretty on track to beat Derby's record. When is the time
Yeah,
for
like
ironic
when do
cheering?
you so
Being a Saints fan comes with an ingrained, built-in sense of dread, self-deprecating sense of humour, because otherwise you don't survive that experience. Like,
exactly, and I think it's not understand. It's like, yeah, well, hopefully we can give him something to cheer about. It's like the problem is for us is you've been saying that all year, and
yeah.
you've been saying that all month, and then there was talk about how he's like, I didn't change anything in the final. We just went 1-0 up early, and then, so
It
everyone
wasn't a
thought I did,
different
and I'm like,
system, it was a different feeling. Okay.
yeah, that was a bit insane to me. I'm like, sure, like there can be said something about Leeds always bottling it in the playoffs that probably played into that as well, but I feel like the time for talking is done. You need to defend yourself on the pitch. At the moment, they're not doing that. So then, when does push comes to shove? But I don't think that going about it in just screaming down St Mary's and complaining is gonna shift the board's attention. They don't care realistically about fans being mad anymore. They made that mistake with Nathan Jones, and then they didn't know what to do, and they spent loads of money, and they won't do that again. If anything, it galvanizes them.
I have heard whispers this week that the ownership has begun to take notice of the negative feel towards Russell Martin, but they are mostly in a position where they don't want to act until they've got a reason to act or they've got something better to replace him with.
Probably
Which is
until
fair
we can sell a
enough.
player, mate. So we
Yeah.
can sell a player to actually pay off
But look, I know I
his fees,
respect
right?
that. The sort of the thought of getting rid of Russell Martin just to get rid of Russell Martin and genuinely do something ridiculous like stick Adam Lallana in charge. No offense to Adam Lallana, I'm sure that one day he will make a fantastic manager, but like, it's it's not today for Saints. Like he's unexposed at that level. It's not a reasonable request of him either. Unless they've got a better plan, I don't want to see it anyway. I hope, like I say, that Martin does turn it around. And I think what's really important Sunday is probably starting fast because we play some good football, get an early goal, then that negativity does start to ebb away, and we get sing song in, and we get cheered on. What we need to not do if we go and do start early and score early is not immediately concede an equaliser, because that has been the story of our season so far. So they're the key 2 points to the game, right? Start early on the front foot. Don't concede a stupid goal quickly.
You just keep describing our season all over and over. It's so funny. It's like, what do we need to do? Well, have shots on target, not concede,
You're right.
preferably score more than the opposition. Don't get me wrong. I love the sentiment. I understand where you're coming from, but it's the self-deprecation, right? It's where it comes from.
Hopefully, with the boost of these players coming back, will give us the confidence to kick on and get something out of it. And that's what we've got to hope for. Otherwise, what are we doing here? I might well be asking myself that same question come Sunday night, but there we go, in a different context. Okay, as we talk about the impact that players coming back might have and get into some predicted lineups, but first a message from our partners at Zencaster. So here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencaster came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencaster. All right, mate. Let's move into let's try and get into the mind of Russell Martin, a scary place, and try and work out what the team sheet looks like on Sunday. So it would be weird to say Macca's back and not start him in goal, right?
Yeah, I think that's basically where they're at. Somebody that has a bit more experience with the system, regardless of whether or not. I feel bad for Lumley in some respects. He's been a good shot stopper. I just don't think he knows how to play out from the back, and that's what Russell Martin wants in a goalkeeper.
Also, he just doesn't seem to have the mentality to stick with the plan, which is
no.
We hear the buzzwords from Russell Martin time and time again about the bravery and willing to take it under pressure, and Lumley lasts about 3.5 seconds before he's booting it long. So
this was in the Chelsea game, like we discussed in our post-match review. Like you could see him and Stevens arguing because he kept trying to cross it out from the back, and he's bad at distribution as well. So he wasn't getting it anywhere other than the opposition. And then obviously when that goal went in, like I can understand what Russell Martin means, but trying to say that the fans had it should be the criticism at that point should be on the player for, hey, remember how I'm the boss and I pay you your wages. Do what I say, don't listen to the fans, because and then if the system entirely fails and we concede because he's listened to the Russell Martin entirely, then also that excuse can't be thrown out. So yeah, it's a weird one, but yeah, I imagine that McCarthy will be back in goal, considering they've made such a large point about talking about it. Unless it turns out that that's just another Houdini trick where we'll expect McCarthy and then it'll be Lumley.
I mean, honestly, what additional prep work comes from preparing for Alex McCarthy? Like, no
Mate, remember you told him to win the Golden Glove this year.
And look how that's gone.
Oh, he did also laugh at you, to be fair, so that says it all.
All right, and then moving slightly further up the pitch, back four or back five, do you think?
It's hard to guess nowadays because apparently we like to do a back five even without Stevens. It's like we've got so used to cramming him in there. Let's just have
So I mean, like Yanni B being back is presumably going to come straight back in, and Taylor Harwood-Bellis is unlikely to miss out. So do we bring Nathan Wood, who had an impressive couple of performances in some pretty dire circumstances, in as that third defender? Or do we go back to a back four?
I wouldn't mind that. I'd prefer it to playing Carl Walker-Peters in whatever position he's played in the last couple of weeks.
At least it's three actual centre-backs if we're
back five, actually playing people in their correct position and driving forward. That would be quite nice. And I think actually putting Carl back on the right would be a good start. To be perfectly honest.
And then who out on the left? Do you think Yuki makes it back into the team, or do you think we see Manning or Fraser?
It'll be either
Charlie Taylor.
I reckon it'll be Manning or Fraser. Charlie did nothing wrong realistically on the Chelsea game, but also didn't do anything
breezy. He had an all right game.
He did have an all right game, but also he did come out in the press immediately after and went 5-1, really flattered him. And I'm like, ooh, I think if they hadn't hit the crossbar, it would have been like 10-1. So
You're right. The woodwork that night could have been man of our match. So
and plus, it's, I think Manning had a solid game that game. I think he's also been one of our more threatening players. He's never on target, but he at least drives forward a little bit more. So I would like to
when
see
he has
him.
been on target, it's been ruled out by dubious VAR decisions. So let's not reopen that wound. Yeah, you're right. I think Manning has done enough and has been pretty consistent for us.
I never thought I'd say it beginning of this year.
Based off of last season, that one of the players who would best step up to the Premier League challenge is someone who, frankly, didn't in the Championship. I don't know, it's baffling. But there we go. That's how weird of a season it's been. Midfield trio, I guess. Fernandes, Aribo, Downs, for me. You sort of holding on to the hope that maybe Lallana over presumably Aribo in that mix?
Yeah, that's what I'd like to see. Whether or not it actually happens, I don't know. Again, the fact that it's said at the end and it was kind of half-assed means that I wouldn't be surprised if he's actually on the bench. I don't really know who else we would pick, really. At this point, that's a kind of pretty solid, established three, right? I doubt Big Les is going to get a shoe in anytime soon. I feel like a couple of those loans are potentially coming to an end. So yeah, we'll have to see, and then obviously I think the rest of it writes itself, right?
Well,
Or
so
not.
then if we're going with a back five, that leaves two more. So who are you sticking in as the front two?
Do we finally have our time, Greg? Well, the thing is, Diblin's not going to miss out either.
That's the thing, right? He's got to be one of the first
right.
names on the team sheet.
You're right. Diblin's isn't missing out.
And actually, the combination of Archer and Armstrong hasn't been awful.
We've not scored.
No,
what are you chatting about?
Maybe you're right. Maybe there's some false positivity there. No, you're right. We had 0 shots on target. Hang on, I'm running it back. I'm running it back.
I was gonna say. I think Tall Paul probably gets a start again.
Yeah.
I think that we need, again, something different. When I talk about change, I don't mean the entire kitchen sink. I mean, let's change some things and hope that stuff happens. And then if that doesn't happen, then more extreme change is needed. Did really well in the game that he ended up going out injured for, where apparently it was just tiredness, but then ended up being a couple of weeks of tiredness. So, with any luck, he can come back in and actually make a difference, or come back in, do nothing, and then it turns out we were right all along.
Well, I don't think a pairing of Tall Paul and Dibbling really would work, if I'm being honest, because they both have a tendency to come deep to want to be on the ball. They both want to find the ball and be on it. So if you're starting Tall Paul, I'd rather Archer in there because he brings that different element, because he'll run, towards the other team's goal where we need to be kicking it. So, which, don't get me wrong, Dibbling does once he picks the ball up, but I just think if you play both Tall Paul and Dibbling, there's not going to be any real out option to boot.
If you bench Dibbling, the good thing about it is you have Dibbling on the bench.
That is what we've seen from Martin before in the season, so it wouldn't entirely surprise me. But yeah, I think Archer and Tall Paul get a start, and for me it's 50-50 whether we play Nathan Wood as a fifth defender or play Diblin as a third forward. I can see either of those things being true.
Is it El Sacchio too, or do you reckon that's a bit extreme?
I don't think that the results are what are preventing the board making that decision.
You're right. I don't think the results at this point actually matter.
Right? If they want to fire Russell Martin, I think that decision either has already been made and steps are being taken, or that decision has already been made and no steps are being taken. Right? There's not.
Interesting.
I don't think that the results at this point are the mitigating factor. I think that the finances and the who we're going to replace him with are the factors that remain at play.
Interesting.
And as for
like
Spurs, who knows? I have no idea.
Yeah, it seems like they're they're almost as upset, if not more upset, than we are at the moment, which I find wild because, as we were pointing out on the podcast yesterday, it's just sort of, I don't know, like a level of like, obviously we can never experience what it's like to be a Spurs fan, but vice versa. Just almost like the sort of, oh, well, we should beat you guys. I'm like, yeah, no, you're
From the
right.
outside looking in, I quite like Big Ange, and if they do
I
fire
think
him,
it's a
maybe he can come here.
much bigger problem with the club than I've ever thought it's a problem with the manager, because I
Yeah.
look at the other managers and go, and I can't help but feel that if you've got players that are being poached by sort of Real Madrid and Bayern Munich and stuff, maybe they can play a system. Maybe there's something far more rotten at the top. What do I know? I'm not a Spurs fan. I'm a Saints fan, and even then, I feel like sometimes I know everything, and the next day I know nothing. It's all completely
There's some
thrown away.
similar parallels, right? Where
Yeah,
Spurs are very much running like a business, not a football team, and we haven't shown a desire to replace our director of football and things like that. But you feel like the long term project of Sports Republic, and to be clear, their ambition and what they are likely to achieve could differ, but they want us to do well and be that sort of club that all the other clubs they own feed into, and that's a system that takes time and isn't going to happen overnight. And it's interesting because to me, obviously there's been mistakes along the way, but none of them are like malicious mistakes. Like, I just don't want to pay that much money. It's not reasonable.
yeah,
Like you hear so much about Daniel Levy and the toxic environment he creates and the issues he had with several players and Harry Kane and all that. It's just, I don't see the same from Sports Republic. But I guess it goes back to the age old verbiage, right? Of don't attribute to malice what you can attribute to incompetence. So
yeah. There's not some big plan to ruin our lives,
no,
but
like
there
they're
is
trying. They're just not. They're not very good at it.
it's
And
just that
what I'm going to
opening
add
up a
to that
pub is
is they're
better
not
for them.
very good at it yet. It's all part of the learning process, I hope. And there's still that hope and optimism that it will come good in the end. But this season probably ain't it. At this
Yeah,
point, our
it's
main
just.
target is let's not be as awful as Derby were. Right?
With that lovely note of optimism, our score predictions I think we decided on yesterday. So I said 2-2.
Before we
I
move on
think
to
Freddie will
score
get some
predictions,
goals
Zach,
in.
I think we've got a message from our partners at the Global
Ooh,
Sports Podcast
I
Network.
think we do. The Global Sports Podcast Network is changing the face of football podcasting with dedicated daily content for every Premier League team, women's football, fantasy football, and a daily Premier League wrap up broadcasted in 5 different languages. This is your one-stop shop for your daily football fix. Find GSPN wherever you find your usual podcasts.
Okay,
Whew.
yeah, let's get back to our predictions. So I think if I remember rightly, you predicted a score draw, 2-2.
Yeah, I said 2. I think maybe again because I don't think it makes anybody happy, and I feel like that's the kind of game that is deserved at 7 p.m. on a Sunday. It is a 2-2 draw where we score 2 goals, they score 2 goals, they're annoyed at a point, we're annoyed at a point. They won't sack Ange off the back of that. We won't do anything with a point because it won't move us anywhere, but it will allow Russell Martin to say, we got a point on the board, and then everyone will be sad. And that's unfortunately what I think is going to happen. What I'd love to happen is we end up like battering them 4-2 or something like that. That'd be crazy. I'm not going to pretend we're not going to concede, but outscoring our opponent would be wonderful. We would require shots on target for this wonderful prediction, though. So,
Look,
at yours, Craig.
this fixture does bring goals, right? If we look back,
3-3 last game we
yeah.
played.
But if we look back as far as 2020 and move forward from there, the fixture's been 3-2, 5-2, 2-1, 1-1, 3-2, 4-1, 3-3.
There's a lot of 4s and 5s there that I don't feel like are ours.
Yeah. One of the threes, 2 of the 3s were us though, mate. It's fine. It's interesting, and it feels like a game with 2 teams struggling. Yeah, I think maybe there is going to be goals. I predicted 2-1, and I guess I'll stand by it because predicting us to score more than that feels insane off the back of no shots on target. But I am optimistic and a little bit unsure. Like, I just don't know it depends what Saints show up. and it depends what Spurs show up, right? Because on their day, Spurs have the ability to show up and absolutely batter us. Let's be clear. Like, I think Son loves scoring against Southampton. I don't remember a game he's played against us where he hasn't scored. So, yeah, I don't know. I just hope that it doesn't ruin my weekend that late into the weekend, because it's going to be a process to recover in time for another trip midweek in the evening for Liverpool. So
yeah, it's going to be a bit hectic, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, I'm hopeful we get something from it, but I have been every week so far, and I've not been proved right very often. So who's to say, mate?
It's what it is, mate.
Predictions is clearly not my forte, but there we go. All right. Well, anyway, that is just about all we've got time for. So on that vague end of optimism, loose optimism, I would say, we will call it a day. Thank you very much for listening to us today. Zach, thanks as always for joining me.
You're welcome, mate.
Let us know in the comments how you think we're going to get on Sunday, and what you make of a wonderful kickoff time of 7 p.m. on a Sunday evening. We are a young, emerging podcast, so all your feedback and likes and comments and ratings really help. So we really appreciate it. Catch us on all the socials, on X and Blue Sky and all of the things that I definitely know what they are. And and we will be back Monday to discuss Sunday night's game. So we look forward to that.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.